Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Closing Beat. Happy Friday. How's it going today? Hope you're having a good day. This is our Closing Beat show. We're financial advisors here at Jazz Wealth Managers, but we like to just keep you updated on how the markets are doing, give you a little update as to what's going on out there, good, bad, and ugly. So we do this show every day here just for you guys. For our customers, we did our class last night on overpriced versus overvalued, and today, really cool how you get to take what we saw last night, put it to practice today, and I'll go over that in a second, but you can actually see a lot of that exactly happening today. We're the type of financial advisors we like to teach, right? So if your advisor's not helping, he's not calling you, he's not working with you, teaching you, that's what we like to do. The guys at the big companies, if you have a lot of money and Goldman Sachs is working with you, well, they're teaching you. They're letting you know exactly what to do and when to do it in regards to your investments and your net worth. Well, we want to bring that to everybody. So far, so good. We've been able to help a lot of customers with that, and we'll continue to do that. Market-wise, you got the Dow lower on the day by about 100 points. Kind of an interesting day, the way it went back and forth. S&P lost 16, and the Nasdaq down 81 to close out the week. Almost a whole lot of nothing for this week. If you look at a lot of the major indices or the sectors, Monday was sort of nasty and scary, and we basically just finished right where we started, maybe a touch under, depending on what you're looking at there. Also, heads up, May 30th, we have a special guest joining us here. We'll have Mr. Josh Scanlon from Heritage Wealth from Heritage Wealth Planning. He's got a YouTube channel as well. Just an incredible amount of information. So if you have questions, we're going to do a Q&A session there for you, and he'll join us here live for the Closing Beat. We'll get his take on the market as well. Guy's got brains, man. Smart guy. So we'll see him on May 30th if you're interested in checking that out. All right, so the markets were basically lower on the day. You had John Deere coming out with earnings. Not good. Stock got crushed. It was worst performer in the S&P today. You also had a lot of Chinese stocks overnight did really poorly. And coming into today, Baidu and things, Alibaba, things like that, had rough days. We'll cover those as well. The market basically shook that all off. We had consumer sentiment numbers, which is a funny... Look up consumer sentiment and how they calculate that. You'll have fun with that one. Anyways, helped us kind of bounce off lows there around 10 o'clock Eastern this morning. And that put us back into positive territory for the most part. And then we got news that the Chinese trade talks have basically stalled. CNBC reported that, and basically what they were saying was the next round of negotiations, they just have nothing to negotiate on. They just can't agree about what they're even going to talk about. So they basically are stuck at a standstill. At least that was the report. That's where it was left off there. And that put us back into the red for the day. So if you look at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you can actually see at the end of the day, the markets just sold off, went into negative territory for the end of the day. And I will keep the comments that the markets remain vulnerable. Yesterday, those were my words. I tried to speak slower and say, hey, the markets were vulnerable. There was a lot going on here, especially with the S&P 500 and the sectors that make that up. I was trying to give you the hint that, hey, this doesn't feel right, man. I'm not allowed to actually tell you what to do, given that we are SEC registered fiduciary financial advisors. But today is more of the same. I'm going to keep that key word going into next week. Vulnerable. There's a lot of this sectors that feel vulnerable going into next week. The major indices, especially the Russell, feel very vulnerable and seem to be leading the way, giving you the hint as to what's about to happen. So I'm going to kind of stick with that. Here's the S&P 500. We started the day, of course, as you saw in a chart before, a little bit of a rally there and gave it almost all of that back and then some going into the end of the day. The Nasdaq 100 doing the exact same thing, pulling back, erasing yesterday's gains, basically erasing yesterday's gains. And the Russell 2000 just not looking good, man. Really not looking good here in the short term. Now you go, well, what could get us out of this mess? What could make it so that we're not vulnerable going in to next week? Well, it's not going to be earnings. Earnings season is essentially over. Almost every company has reported earnings, and the number of companies, if you were to look at the whole earnings season, the number of companies that have beat on earnings is at the lowest level that it's been, and it continues to decline over the last 5 quarters. We also look at the number of companies that are guiding higher versus guiding lower, essentially flat. You like to remember last earnings season, more companies were guiding lower. They were saying, hey, expect less from us. Analysts lowered their expectations. In this earnings season, all the companies basically said, right about there, right? Some of them said higher, some of them said lower. They're basically flat. So not much to go on there. If you go next week, you have, to start on Monday, you've got some Fed speak from a Federal Reserve chairman or president at the beginning of the day. Later in the day, you have Jerome Powell, of course, the head dog. He'll be talking later in the evening there. And you have healthcare conference coming up. I believe it starts on Monday as well. Big healthcare conference, so healthcare stocks already kind of started wiggling around today. You'll see a lot more of that going into next week. Sector-wise, semiconductors back at the bottom of the list, just like we reported yesterday. They were the worst performer today. They're the worst performer, 2% loss on the day. You can't really get any decent market rally without this category here, and you just didn't get it today, especially at the end of the day when they talked about those China trade talks being stalled. Semiconductors just basically sold off to lows, not looking really good there. This carries over from yesterday, the whole Huawei ban and all the other companies that the U.S. is sort of banning or trying to ban from working with. Sector-wise, utilities had the biggest swing from lows to highs relative, week over week. So utilities moving back to highs. Consumer staples were the second sector in there that had the biggest swing from lows to highs week over week. And this is the one. If you're one of our customers, we talked about this one in particular last night to explain what would happen. What would you expect going forward? And now you guys see, if you're one of our customers, you went to that class, now you see exactly what that means. Now watch what happens Monday and going into next week as well. It's the same thing. It's where if you can, it's not that I'm some magic crystal ball type guy. If you can see the difference between overpriced and overvalued and see those moments in time, you can at least know when to avoid something or when to dive into something. So without getting into too much there, check out that video. It's in the dojo, all uploaded and ready to go. But consumer staples had the biggest swing week over week from low to high. Just wanted to point that one out to you. Materials were the last one. They came in third place, not really all that exciting. So you can really start to see how a lot of sectors, the overall range from last week to this week, very, very tight. Same with the S&P 500, very, very small range in there. Energy continues to be the most, you would say, oversold sector, right? The most discounted here in the short term. And so, yeah, just thought I'd point that out to you. I don't know. Do you like that sort of thing? Other than that, all of these areas here in the middle, all mixed, right? You didn't get any new information. Transports, you didn't get anything new to convince you to be a bull or convince you to sell position. This week was sort of a not helpful in that respect. So I guess we should be thankful in one way. But other than that, as I dig through all of this in here, I just don't have much to go on. You don't finish out this week going, yes, we're going to bounce next week. You also don't finish out this week going, uh-oh, we're going to collapse next week. You basically are left questioning what's going to happen. So next week may not be a week you want to miss. I don't know. We'll be here anyways. We'll check it out. Pinterest down double digits on the day. It was down over 15% at one point. Reported earnings. We talked about this yesterday. They lose money. It's an IPO that people got sucked into, has a pretty decent valuation there, and they don't make any money. They lost $41 million. Total revenue, $201 million. Brought in $201 million, spent all $201 million, lost an additional $41. Don't know where it came from. It's just gone. They lost that money too. So they blamed it on hiring new employees. That must be a boat ton of new employees if that's what they're going to blame it on. Nonetheless, the stock took a big hit today. Kind of looking at a new IPO there. Speaking of IPOs, you got Luckin Coffee. It won't come up here on the charts, but you have Luckin Coffee. Basically had a great IPO. They raised more than they thought they would. The stock price finished higher than where it started. I think it closed at 20, somewhere around 20. Opened at 17. So basically a good IPO there. Nothing to complain about if you're one of the old Luckin investors there, unless you bought it today at some point, and then paid up for it, I guess, but not bad. So and there were actually two other IPOs that went public today, and they all did well. So a good day for IPOs. You don't really hear about that on TV, but a couple smaller names went public, and it was a good day for IPOs if you follow that sort of thing. Going back over here to the charts, we got Baidu. Holy cow, Baidu. That's not good. Sharp decline there for Baidu. It's their first quarterly loss since they went public. So kind of a shocker, right? People weren't expecting that. Chinese economy slowing down. They're basically admitting, yeah, slowing down. We're having a tough time over here. They guided for the current quarter lower than expected as well, so not good for Baidu in the short term. Amazon was lower today, although this is not why, but Amazon was in the news They, along with T. Rowe Price, Charles Schwab, Fidelity, they're investing $575 million in Deliveroo. I think that's how you say it. It's a British company that's essentially the same as Uber Eats, trying to compete in that respect. Amazon leading the way there with the investment. Hey, you ever wonder, like, T. Rowe Price, Fidelity, well, where are they getting the money to invest in this? Right? Dig a little deeper. Tesla shares, oh, that's not Tesla. Tesla looks a lot different than that stock. There you go. Tesla shares selling off almost 8% on the day. Elon Musk sending out an email to employees basically saying, I'm going to watch every dime, right? We just raised $2.1 billion, and that will only last us 10 months is exactly his words that he said he put in there. He said, we got 10 months of money to spend. We are not profitable. We're losing $200 million a month. And he basically said, I'm going to be watching every penny. So he's signing off on, I believe, every 10th page or something of the expense reports or money going out. And the CFO is going to actually sign off on every single purchase or dollar spent by the company. Ouch. Well, the stock was also lower, by the way, on the day because they officially confirmed that crash, I believe it was in California, the crash that killed a person was also had autopilot on. So some work to do there. I mean, it's not a lot of good news for Tesla. Looks like it's trying to hint at sub $200. We'll see what happens. Under Armour, sharply higher here on the day. That one had a good day. 7%. JP Morgan basically came out with a glowing upgrade, just over and above what they normally do when they upgrade a stock. They said they got an amazing product pipeline. I believe the word he used was stacked. Somewhere in there, he used the word stacked product pipeline. He was very excited about the company, so the stock price was higher on the day. I'll mention Cisco was also higher on the day as well, although not quite as much as it was. Carrying over from yesterday, one of the stocks that we own there, looking good for Cisco. And Walmart basically coming back into this tight little range here. Not a whole lot of excitement out of Walmart. Also, did you happen to see Bitcoin overnight? So that's the This is the problem with investing in new exchanges. I know it's a unique thing, but possible fat finger trade in Bitcoin overnight. The price of Bitcoin fell over 20% at one point, rallied back. I think for the day it finished down still, or for the week now, down about 9%, but a wild overnight session there for Bitcoin. Went from about 8,000 all the way down to almost 6,000 all in one shot. Just bam, swept back up. Look, this used to happen in the stock market, and then they figured out circuit breakers, and they put circuit breakers in, and whether you like them or you don't like them, they stop things like that from happening, or are supposed to. All right, I'll take your questions if you have any questions. What else do I have? Pulte Homes, $500 million stock buyback. They announced today. We got the Fed speak next week we talked about. Yeah, it's pretty light. Earnings-wise, we're not really going to have a lot to talk about. IGT reports, if you're interested in that sort of thing. But that's basically it to wrap up the week. What about Boeing? Yeah, Boeing, I mean, that news kind of carries over from yesterday. Nice little recovery. I mean, it was positive on the day. But from what I understand, they're going to host the world's regulators to come over and talk about this software patch. It's not going to be an immediate, hey, everything's good and back to normal. But good news that they're making progress on that software patch. Yeah. Oh, you know what? 3M. Yeah, you're right. 3M, new 52-week lows again. That's a brutal chart there. I mean, from 220 down to like I don't even know where it finished, 160. That's incredible. That's a very, very, very sharp move. Steve-O likes some Baidu. All right, cool. You got yourself a discount there. Let's hope it's a good one. Yeah. He thought it was discounted last week. If you liked it last week, you probably love it this week. That's a discount. Yep. I hear you. Occidental Petroleum, also 52-week lows today as well. Was there a question on that one? Updated thoughts on Occidental Petroleum. That's falling knife right there. So Occidental Petroleum, those types of downtrends can continue for extremely long amounts of time. Notice how this is just in a straight decline. Simple, consistent, almost calm type selling. What you need is the waterfall sort of drop to indicate the bottom. If I could go out a little further. See how this happened here? You got a little consistent selling and then the waterfall drop. I know it's kind of hard to tell. If I could zoom in a little bit. There you go. That final exhaustion kind of sell-off. You just don't have that yet in Occidental, but that'll be what you're looking for. If you're trying to pick a bottom, or if you're just hoping that it bottoms out at some point, that'll be what you're looking for. Nothing new to say on Berkshire Hathaway. It's not something you trade, in my opinion. It's just, I mean, even if you're doing a Class B shares, it's just basically a choppy mess. As an investor, I mean, clearly you're playing the long game there. Everybody plays the long game on that one, but no comment really on that one. Yep. Sorry if I missed a few of your questions there. Oh, Beyond Meats. Yeah, it wouldn't be right if we didn't talk about Beyond Meats on the day there. Look, this is a stock that the big guys, the active traders, those that watch this on a daily basis, desperately want to fall. They're putting a ton of pressure on this to fall. This is an incredible valuation for this company. There is no way, first of all, I don't invest in any IPO until after 200 days, but there is just no way any reasonable person can justify the current price of this stock. It's all hype. This is and is going to be a great lesson in hype. There's no way. I mean, what are they going to make? $100 million? Maybe. Will they sell $100 million this year? No, I don't even think they'll sell that much. They lose money, first of all, so they're not profitable. You're investing. You're essentially saying the company is worth what? 5.5. Let's call it $5.2 billion as of the end of today. They're worth $5.2 billion and they lose money. I better stop there before I get on a rant there. Come on. Let's use our heads here. I get it. It's exciting. They're fun trades, right? If you're active, but come on. I love it. Can you buy Bitcoin in your IRA? You can't. There's some ETFs coming to market, but you can't buy Bitcoin directly in retirement accounts. Yep. And that would be an interesting day if they allow that. I think that'd be a very interesting day. That's why they're trying to do ETFs to try to sneak it in there. So far, I mean, there are ETFs where you can participate in blockchain in various ways, but there are none that I know of directly for any coin directly. So I know they're in the works. They're trying to push them through. The SEC hasn't been too nice about it, though. Yep. No real update on oil. Oil is basically one of those that just kind of did its thing today. Hopefully this thing updates. Oh, sorry. I got to go back here. In a choppy mess, very difficult to try to pick a direction or get excited about a direction in oil. If you're in it, there's no real reason to sell it, but if you're trying to buy it, there's no real reason to buy it, and that happens sometimes. Might happen a lot more over the summer if you're looking at different stocks. Yeah. Bicycling with a 50-pound pack, 70 miles in 24 hours, not that big of a deal if you know how to do it. I thought you were making a reference to something there. No rants. You've been making great money on Beyond Meat. You bought really low, you'll sell when it starts to fall. Well, today it started to fall. Does that count? If you're an active trader, now that's the tough part about what I'm doing here, right? If you're an active trader, there's a camp for you in Beyond Meats, right? There's a reason to be active in a volatile stock. I totally get it. Trust me, I understand. Tesla, same thing. If you're an active trader, there's a reason to participate in that. 3M, anything volatile right now. Semiconductors, right? There's a reason. AMAT, there's great reasons to participate if you're active. If you're an investor, see that's a different story, so it's a little bit difficult there. When I start going off on valuation tangents, I'm talking investments. We talk about price and how things are moving in the short term. That's for those of you that I recognize the name and can tell you guys are active. Yep. Where do you see the markets going in the next week? Are we on a down? I can't really say, but I'm like I said earlier, I'm going to continue the same comments that we are very vulnerable at this point, right? You have a lot of sectors. You can't say that the markets look like they're a bit weak, but a lot of sectors have already sold off aggressively, and so that'll help support. You can't say that here. You have a lot of sectors that are hinting that they are trying to take a break, pull back, and you have a stock market that is obviously very easily wanting to go along with it. So I think it's going to be an interesting week. It feels weaker. Yep. Hey, Dustin, I remember you spoke once about teaching people to trade. Do you still do it? We talk about it in our classes because a lot of our customers, they let us do the retirement side of things. They do the active side of things. I'm trying to get a gauge as to how many people in our group do that. I could talk about that more in our classes. I just don't want to alienate other people. But yeah, that's a real passion of mine. I like talking about, well, as you could tell, I'm here all the time talking about trading. Yep. Robert, Josh Scanlon will be joining us May 30th, Thursday, May 30th. He's coming down here, and we'll do this show with him, and then we'll do the Thursday live class at 1 o'clock with him. So Thursday, May 30th at 1 p.m. Eastern, and now 5 p.m. Eastern. Yep. How's Uber doing? Both of the ride-sharing, well, Uber took the day off, really. It's pulled back a little bit there, 2.5%. Basically right where it started. Yep. Yep. Well, I really appreciate you guys checking us out here, hanging out with us for a little bit. I think that's all I have to share with you. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of news for me to cover for you to start next week besides the Fed speak. Dividends rather quiet. Typical Friday, not a big deal there. We'll be back next week to do this all over again. I really appreciate you watching. Let's see what happens, right? Have a great weekend. Be safe, and we'll talk to you then.
Why should you choose Jazz Wealth as your retirement or long-term investing service? Our portfolios are managed by us, not some faceless mutual fund manager. Our private classes will teach you everything about investing and getting your dough straight. Best of all, our fiduciary standard means your best interest comes before ours.